I'm Thundercloud, how are you? Welcome to Chillin Tuesday. On this Tuesday, the 18th of July 2023, I'm here in the Seahorse Medicine Cafe at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. And tonight, I will be reading from this collection of the recently passed great Australian bush poet, Bessie Jennings. But first, let's begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I broadcast the Kamilaroi and the Banbai people, to acknowledge the continuing connection to the land of the elders past and present, and to acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded, and a treaty is what's needed. Well, the wit and words of a wise old word, that's one of these books of Bessie Jennings. Bessie was born in Bessie Jennings nee Everingham was born in 1930 in Wauchope, New South Wales. She was a teacher, a wife, mother, librarian, parent, educator, relationship counsellor since 2007, a U3A tutor, award-winning writer and performer of bush poetry. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think I had 7 all up, of her books. Oh, there's one over there that I'm not reading out of tonight. And these books came courtesy of a fella who dropped them in just 3 days ago, Ian Kirk of Swarmerez Ponds, which is near Armadale. He's left his note with it. Bessie Elaine Jennings, nee Everingham, also known as Bessie Haysman and Bessie Fowler, 1930 to 2022, so she lived to 92 years old. Went to school with this guy's dad, went to school with my dad in Croydon, Sydney, and was my parents' neighbour in Port Macquarie in 1990 to 2022. This is a collection of some of her works that you may like to add to your collection. Regards, Ian Kirk. Well, yeah, definitely. And tonight, I'll be reading a selection of Bessie Jennings' work. This one here that I'm not reading out of, the Deadpan Bedpan book. That's the first one. This one here was published in 2006 in Port Macquarie. Says Bessie Jennings writes and performs her poems at bush poetry gatherings in retirement villages and for service clubs. She's done her share of time in hospital and believes in fun and laughter. And so there you go, this is what we're in for tonight. And a quick announcement, we've got on July the 22nd, that's this Saturday afternoon at 2:30 here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. We've got Fiore Musicale coming here with Love and Nature, conducted by Stuart Pavella, a concert of folk song arrangements and original compositions of 20th century composers, English choral composers including Vaughan Williams, Holst, Britton and Elgar. So that's this coming Saturday, the 22nd of July, 2:30 p.m. here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Tickets are $20 or $25, and then they've also got a show at 7:30 at the Armadale Playhouse at Beardy Street. As well as that, we've got in August on the 15th and 16th, we've got the Australian Poetry Slam Heat here in Guyra, and we've also got the workshop. So they're sending up a slam poet to do a workshop on the 15th of August. Check it out online on the web page and also on our Facebook page. And then on the 16th of August, the Guyra Heat of the Australian Poetry Slam. So regional, rural poets, this is your chance to get your slam on. You've got 2 minutes on stage, and the winner, and there's 2 places to go to Sydney for the New South Wales final, which then could lead you into the Australian final. Wow, that is so lucky. So the 16th of August, get your slam poet on and get here to Guyra for the Australian Poetry Slam Guyra Heat. Also, on the 1st of October, we've got Trout Fest and the Poets Breakfast and a kids comp. And the really, really big one is Poets on the Mountain Festival from the 12th of November to the 19th of November here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, featuring the Australian Bush Poets Association New South Wales Bush Poetry Championship right here on the big stage, with written and performance sections, as well as the inaugural Australian Bush Poetry Film Festival. Fantastic! So if you're a filmmaker or a poet and you want to put a bush poem into film, do it. And submissions open 1st of August on filmfreeway.com. All right, we're always looking for sponsorships and donations because it costs a bit of money here to put on these shows, put on our poetry up here onto YouTube, etc., etc. So in the link below, we'll find in the description the PayPal link, which is at Australian Poetry Hall. So if you'd like to make a donation, it would be very appreciated. And while you're at it, smash that thumbs up button and the subscribe button, and leave a comment on what poets you would like me to be reading out on a Chillin Tuesday night, because the Australian Poetry Library is growing and growing and growing. And on that note, if you've got a poetry book that you've written and you'd like to have it here in the Australian Poetry Library and Archive, well, you can send it to us here at 144 Bradley Street, Guyra, at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Or if you've got a collection of poetry that you would like to donate to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame Poetry Library and Archive, even the better. So you know where we are, 144 Bradley Street, Guyra, here, right here. I'm here every Tuesday night. Right, let's get the show on the road with the poetry section. Well, where will I begin? I'll begin at the beginning like I always would. And tonight, I'll start with the children's poetry, Grounded. Recitable Rhymes for Aussie Kids by Bessie Jennings. A little bit more about Bessie. She's a fourth generation descendant of First and Second Fleet convicts. Careers were school teaching, marriage, motherhood, library management, relationship counselling. Twice widowed. Husband's respective occupations including timber cutting, banana going and public service. She's lived in the bush in Sydney's western suburbs and now lives with Frank in Port Macquarie. Poetry writing, a dabbler since school days, began entering competitions in 1996. Alright, so Grounded. This one here was published in 2003. Please keep reading. learning, reciting, listening to and enjoying Aussie bush poetry, including mine, Bessie Jennings. A grub. Inside a grub there's more you know than you or I can see. There's wings that haven't happened yet, with colours you cannot forget and muscles that will fly away when it becomes an adult one day. And inside me there's more you know than anyone can see. There's skills that I have yet to learn, and talents I can't yet discern, and wisdom and a heart to pray when I become adult one day. I may be just a grub, I know, I've lots to learn, you see. I'm clumsy and I make mistakes, the same as anybody makes. And as I grow, I'll change, you bet. God isn't finished with me yet. Scrabble. Oh, I like this one too before. The television in our houses caused a bit of trouble until we switched the TV off and started playing Scrabble. We sit up until midnight, or as long as we are able, playing one game then another as we huddle around the table. We keep on learning strategies to build a higher score and get quite addicted. We keep playing more and more. We greedily seek out the blues and pinks to score a double, and even more the blues and reds that build up to a treble. Our Sybil is the scorer with a hyperactive scribble. Our dictionary is handy just to settle any squabble. The spellings can be queried if anyone should quibble, but Bill thumps the poor old table until it begins to wobble. Quit arguing and have your turn. Cut the silly babble. He settles all the squabbles from the Scrabble player's Bible. Forgive me if I dribble as I drooling tell this fable. Conceited cousin Mabel, who's a little bit unstable, has lately condescended to just dabble in the Scrabble. We kind of pricked a bubble, she was beaten by the rabble. Last night, with 7-letter words, we keep the bingos mounting. Our Sybil was kept busy with the scoring and the counting. We played till we were feeble and were dazed for lack of sleep, and off to bed we hobbled with no need for counting sheep. Our vocabulary has doubled, and without a bit of trouble we can dash off in the middle for a snack of Jimmy Riddle. Our evenings are hilarious. We gurgle and we giggle as we juggle with the consonants. It can become a struggle in disbelief, discovering that this really is a word. And the meanings are ridiculous, the spellings are absurd, but the moral of the story is to save a lot of trouble, switch your television off and take up playing Scrabble. Lovely, I like that one. Paddy Poole's pumpkin. If you've never seen the pumpkin Paddy Poole grew on the Murray, you're not likely to believe this wondrous tale. But I'll cross my heart, may lightning strike me down here in a hurry, if that pumpkin isn't bigger than a whale. Well, the seed that Paddy planted was particularly chosen. It was one his wife saved in the windowsill. Paddy planted it in springtime with the ground no longer frozen in a gully at the bottom of the hill. Then he fed it well with compost and some leaf mould he had found, and the sweepings from the wife's old chicken shed. He would cultivate it daily and would irrigate the ground with the water from the pot beneath the bed. Well, they say the first few leaves appeared in barely 20 hours, and they grew so big the neighbours' kids would hide there. Yes, the vine grew fast, gigantic leaves, but never any flowers until one day at last old Paddy spied there just one flower like a dinner plate, so fast it grew and flourished. In 10 minutes it had bloomed and quickly died. Paddy watched in amazement this great monster he had nourished, and before 10 minutes more he had espied that the fruit had set one baby pumpkin as big as Paddy's eyeball. If you don't believe me, go and ask the priest. Well, the priest and all the parish folk will swear upon the Bible, in a week it was a metre wide at least. Then the Guinness Book of Records sent a team to measure round it and compare it with the pumpkins at the show. It was visible for miles around, so they could easily found it, only 2 weeks old, continuing to grow. But it took 10 men with metal tapes to measure around the centre, and poor Paddy couldn't send it to the Royal. Much too heavy for a crane lift, so Paddy had to enter some much smaller ones he'd grown in rich soil. Well, one day they cut the pumpkin, took a chunk from side to side, and they found it made delicious pumpkin soup. And so bit by bit they shared it with their neighbours far and wide, taking tons of fresh flesh out scoop by scoop. And the pumpkin still keeps growing. It's a tourist destination, like the big banana up Coffs Harbour Way. It's enormous, it's gigantic, and my latest information, Paddy's selling pumpkin seed, all organic guaranteed, and you'll need a sack to carry one away. Cool, hey? Grounded. Recitable rhymes for Aussie kids by Bessie Jennings. Oh, here we go, the wit and words of a wise old bird. We've only got one in this one for you. This is called Mark and his 27 karat gold nuggets. An armchair activist named Mark was quite a star on Twitter, and sadly he was smoking quite a bit. He started putting weight on and he wanted to be fitter, and his doc suggested that he ought to quit. A blood test showed some problems in our hero's enzyme system. They sent him to a specialist for tests. Although he had no symptoms yet, if he had, he'd missed them like women do with ovaries or breast. And sure enough, a tissue sample brought his dismal answer. His prostate gland was not what it should be. The diagnosis revealed a localised small cancer. It should be out as promptly as it could be. But first they'd have to shrink in. There'd be hormones for a start, which might produce some feminine effects, restoring head growth on his scalp that wouldn't break the heart, but breasts might be unwelcome, one suspects. And next, they'd be inserting little seeds of solid gold, yes, the size of little grains of rice, as targets for the radioactive isotopes, I'm told. To put them in there doesn't sound quite nice. How clever though, and meanwhile, for the ways to work their best, he'd need to find a way to stop the smoking. Perhaps a hypnotherapist. Yes, that would be his quest. We know the good oncologists aren't joking. And while all this was happening, he practiced exercising his pelvic floor in case it might get weak. And so avoid the problems some men still find quite surprising, losing control of how to take a leap. And after Mark's restored to health, those little golden particles will still be there for future x-ray screaming. Those little seeds of solid gold are harmless little articles, and family jewels takes on a whole new meaning. Yeah. All right. Beating Around the Bush by Bessie Jennings again. Walker's one-star hotel. I once took a job where I travelled a lot in Walker. When evening fell, I looked for a place where the tourist was cheap. I stayed in a one-star hotel. The bedrooms were not air-conditioned, of course, with musty old brewery smell. The stairs were quite narrow and steep, dimly lit with stains in the carpet as well. The bed was a single, quite comfy and clean, old-fashioned and narrowed and small. A little old wardrobe stood just by the bed and bathroom a mile down the hall. But the light hanging near the ceiling was dim. No chance of good bedtime read. No chance of a good bedtime read. But listen, the tariff with bed for the night included a wonderful feed. The breakfast was on in the morning downstairs. I followed the clatter of dishes. Hot porridge was top of the menu those days, and more if the customer wishes. With sausages bubble and squeak, scrambled eggs and fried onion gravy and chops, plus genuine butter and lashings of toast and a big pot of tea that was tops. And as it was winter, a big open fire was needed to keep out the chill. And since there were no other overnight guests, the welcome I got was a thrill. Coming to the kitchen, the hostess called out, "In here you'll be warmer, you know." A big fuel stove cooked the hot country fare and gave out a warm, cosy glow. When with real country people I feel right at home and no frills, and I'm happy to tell, as value for money, the best I've had was Walker's old one-star hotel. All right, so there you go. There's a selection of Bessie Jennings, the recently passed, a wonderful Australian bush poet. And so thank you very much to Ian Kirk for a donation of those 7 Bessie Jennings poetry books, which will now go into the Australian Poetry Library and Archive. Well, I'm Thundercloud. That's it for Chillin' Tuesday. I've read you some poetry. You have a beautiful, sweet dreams, and I'll see you tomorrow night for Wednesday Words here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. See you later.